I never expected a simple pop quiz to turn into a heart-pounding test of my limits. I will never forget that day. The kind of chaos that shakes you to your core, that grips you by the throat and doesn't let go. The classroom buzzed with muted whispers, nervous laughter and shuffling papers. I could feel it in my bones, something was off. As I sat there, my heart raced like a wild animal trapped in my chest. Ms. Thompson stood at the front, her piercing gaze scanning the room. There was an edge to her smile, a glimmer of mischief. I had always thought of her as strict, but today, she seemed different. My palms were sweaty on the desk, the wood rough beneath my fingertips. Around me, my classmates exchanged anxious glances. Suddenly, she clapped her hands once, sharp and loud. "All right, everyone. It's time for a pop quiz." The words hung in the air, thick like fog. My stomach tightened. I had never been good at quizzes, but today felt charged, electric. There was something brewing beneath the surface, something dark and unknown. As we flipped our papers, pen tips trembling, my eyes flicked to the clock. The second hand ticked louder than ever, each movement a countdown. I could hear the faint rustle of pages being turned, the soft scratching of pencils against the paper. A bead of sweat trickled down my spine. But then, something strange occurred. I glanced at the boy next to me, Isaac, and he was staring at his paper, eyes wide and unblinking, as if he'd seen a ghost. The silence shattered like glass as an ear-piercing screech erupted from the hallway. My heart jumped, and I glanced out the door. Shadows danced in the corridor, flickering under the harsh fluorescent lights. What was that? Someone whispered frantically. I wasn't the only one feeling the tension. There was a low rumble, like thunder building in the distance. I could feel the vibrations under my feet. The lights flickered, and a gasp rippled through the room. Ms. Thompson's face hardened, worry creasing her forehead. She glanced at the door, uncertainty flashing across her expression. "Everyone, just stay calm," she commanded, but her voice trembled slightly enough for all of us to notice. My head spun with questions. Why was she getting anxious? And then, the quiz papers started to shift. They lifted off the desks, floated eerily in the air, defying gravity. My breath hitched in my throat. This couldn't be real. Panic engulfed the room as students shrieked, their expressions morphing into sheer terror. I clutched my desk, nails digging into the surface as the papers swirled into a dark vortex above us. My heart pounded louder than ever. What is happening? I thought, a lump forming in my throat. I shot a glance at Ms. Thompson. I could feel her fear radiating, but it was mixed with something else. Was that excitement? Then, just as quickly as it began, everything crashed down. The papers scattered across the floor, and the silence returned, heavy and hot. The flickering light steadied, but the tension remained, thick in the air like smoke. Ms. Thompson stood motionless, a single tear trailing down her cheek. "Everyone, we need to leave. Now," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. A feeling gripped my chest, something terrible was coming. I had to know more. I looked at Isaac, whose eyes screamed for answers. Outside the classroom, shadows loomed larger than life, whispering secrets I was afraid to uncover. "Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The air was thick with silence as we stumbled into the hallway, following Ms. Thompson like a flock of lost sheep. The lights flickered erratically, casting a strobe effect that turned the shadows into monstrous forms. I could hear the pounding of my heart echoing in my ears, a relentless reminder that I was alive, that I had to make it through whatever was happening. As we reached the main corridor, the first thing that struck me was the disarray: lockers ajar, papers strewn across the floor, and strange, indeterminate shapes lurking just beyond the edges of the flickering lights. It felt as though we were trapped in a waking nightmare, a world suddenly fractured and terrifying. I exchanged a glance with Isaac, whose face was drenched in sweat, eyes darting around as if trying to locate an escape route. "Ms. Thompson, what is going on?" I stammered, desperation creeping into my voice. I needed answers, any glimmer of understanding in this void of chaos. She turned to me, her expression hardened yet vulnerable. "I don't know," she replied, her tone trembling. "But we must stick together and move quickly." The urgency in her voice cut through the haze of confusion, igniting a flicker of determination within me. We moved further down the hall, weaving around students who were either frozen in fear or sprinting for the exits. My mind raced. Why didn't the school siren sound? Were our families aware of the turmoil unfolding within these walls? The echo of Isaac's footsteps beside me served as an anchor in the chaos, reminding me that I wasn't alone, even amidst the fear and uncertainty. Suddenly, from the corner of my eye, I caught a glimpse of Ms. Thompson reaching for her phone, a brief glint of hope flickering in my chest. She couldn't be fumbling at such a critical moment, or could she? "Please, just call someone," I pleaded. She shook her head, panic flooding her features. "No signal. The entire building is down." Her voice cracked, and for a moment, I saw the strong facade crumble. It was as if the weight of everything that was happening pressed upon her, sharing the burden with all of us. As we turned a corner, a rush of cold air swept over us, carrying with it the faint sound of whispers, soft yet insistent, like a lullaby full of hidden warnings. "Did you hear that?" I whispered to Isaac, who nodded, his eyes wide with horror. "Let's keep moving," he urged, his voice steady despite the fear trembling beneath. Just then, a bright flash illuminated the hallway. I squinted against the light, half expecting to see the source of our nightmare. Instead, I noticed a figure standing at the other end, cloaked in darkness. "Is that?" I hesitated, but Ms. Thompson's sudden gasp confirmed that she recognized the silhouette. The figure took a step forward, and the light sputtered to life for a brief moment, enough to reveal a familiar face: Julian, a boy from our grade known for his notorious pranks. There had always been something off about him, a lurking intensity that could turn the most mundane situation into chaos. "What are you doing here?" Ms. Thompson demanded, her voice laced with surprise. "You need to get to safety." "Danger is coming," he murmured, the eerie calmness of his words sending a shiver down my spine. "I saw it. I saw them." My stomach churned at the fear in his expression. "They're coming for all of you. We don't have time." As he spoke, the whispers grew louder, wrapping around us, their tone urgent and pleading. I could feel the pulse of fear swelling in the air, a tide rising. "Who?" I whispered, my voice strained. "The reason," he said cryptically, glancing around as if they were waiting just beyond sight. "They thrive on chaos, and they won't stop until it engulfs everyone." Before I could process his words, the lights flickered violently again, and something within me snapped. "We can't just stand here. We need to figure out what's happening." I almost shouted, my voice crashing against the walls of uncertainty that confined us, but just as the statement left my lips, the lights went out entirely, leaving us engulfed in darkness. The panic exploded around us, shouting, crying, the echoes of fear spiraling to a crescendo within me. I felt a firm hand pull me backward. "We need to stay together." Isaac pressed against me, his warmth a brief refuge amidst the chaos as fear slithered deeper into my veins, and then I heard a sound more chilling than thunder rolling in the distance, a churning darkness closing in around us, and I realized in that moment, we had crossed a threshold from which there might be no return. The whispers coiled tighter around my heart, wrapping it in ice. That we needed to fight, to survive, and most importantly, to understand what lay ahead. As the darkness swallowed us whole, I steeled myself for the journey that awaited on the other side. The silence enveloped us like a thick fog as the darkness pressed in, the air heavy with uncertainty and fear. My breaths came in sharp bursts, each inhalation a struggle against the suffocating atmosphere. I could hear the scuffle of feet echoing in the corridor, a frantic symphony of terror, punctuated by gasps and whispers. "Stay close." Ms. Thompson's voice was barely more than a murmur above the cacophony of panic. But even her command wavered, revealing the tremor of fear that underlined her authority. Isaac was near, his presence a solid anchor in this ocean of confusion. I turned, desperate to see his face, to find reassurance in the familiar lines of worry etched there. "What do you think Julian meant?" I asked, desperate for a distraction from the turmoil brewing inside. "Don't know," he whispered, his voice trembling slightly. "But I don't like it. We need to find a way out." The moment hung there, a fragile reality we both clutched in our minds. But before we could devise a plan, the darkness around us seemed to pulse, alive with unwelcome energy. I shivered, trying to shake it off like an unwelcome blanket, when suddenly the lights flickered back to life, but the illumination revealed a terrifying scene. In front of us stood a pair of figures, silhouetted by the harsh, artificial light. Shadowy specters turned toward us, their features indistinct but their intentions vividly clear. Hostile. A surge of adrenaline ignited inside me, pushing aside the numbness of fear. They weren't just figments of our imagination, they were real, and they were blocking our way. "Run!" Ms. Thompson shouted, but as soon as the words left her mouth, one of the figures surged forward, a whip of shadows slashing through the air. In that instant, clarity broke through my panic. Without hesitation, I grabbed Isaac's hand, yanking him toward the nearest exit. We sprinted past the statuesque figures, hearts pounding as the creatures' chilling howls echoed behind us. Fear propelled us into a side corridor, dodging lockers and debris with the instinct of prey fleeing predators. "Where do we go?" I shouted, breathless, searching for any semblance of safety. "We need to find the gym," Isaac cried, determination alighting his features. "There's a window we can use." Our feet flew over the slick linoleum, that strange thrumming silence now punctuated by our racing hearts. Each step reverberated in the eerie quiet, an unsettling counterpoint to our urgent shouts. We rounded the corner, and the flickering lights danced around us, casting erratic shadows that made the corridor feel longer and heavier in its dread. As we rushed toward the gym, I glanced back, half expecting to see the pursuing shadows closing in. But there was nothing. The hallway stretched empty behind us, swallowed by the encroaching darkness. It was unnerving, a tangled knot forming in my stomach. "Are we safe?" I breathed, skirting another corner toward the gym doors. But the uncertainty surged again, stronger than ever. Isaac pushed through the double doors with a force I thought would break them. Instead, they swung open to reveal a gymnasium suffused with dim light, a stark contrast to the chaos outside. Desks had been overturned, basketballs rolled away, and a disarray of belongings littered the floor like the aftermath of a storm. "Check for others," I urged, my heart racing as we surveyed the room. Isaac nodded, and while he moved deeper into the space, I felt the urge to sink into the corners, to hide away from the swallowing shadows outside. But as I cast my gaze over the chaotic scene, something caught my eye, a flash of a silver bracelet glinting under the faint light near the bleachers. Curiosity compelled me forward, pushing my fear aside momentarily. As I approached, recognition washed over me. Sammy's bracelet, the one she'd worn since freshman year, a simple charm that had once symbolized our tight-knit friendship. But now, it lay alone, marred by an unearthly atmosphere that choked the light. Panic seized my throat, constricting until it was hard to breathe. "Isaac!" I turned back, urgency magnified by the dread building inside me. "We need to find Sammy. She's not here." Isaac's eyes widened, the weight of realization heavy in the air. "We can't leave her behind," he shouted, a fierce determination flashing as we rushed toward the gym exits again. Just as we turned to leave, the lights flickered out once more, plunging us into darkness. A low hum reverberated through the air, an unsettling vibration that seemed to resonate with the very core of my being. Just beyond the bleachers, I saw a flicker of movement. My heart raced as I took a tentative step forward, straining to discern the figure before me. Was it Sammy? The looming silhouette drew closer, and with it came the unmistakable warmth of familiarity, mixed with the chill of something profoundly wrong. "Sammy?" I called, desperation bursting from my lips, my pulse quickening with fraught hope. But as the figure stepped into the faint twilight emanating from the gym's emergency exit, words caught in my throat, and my heart plummeted. It wasn't her. It was someone else entirely, someone I never expected to see again. The figure's features began to coalesce in the dim light, familiar, yet foreign, a fabric woven of memories I had tried to forget. My heart lurched painfully in my chest as recognition washed over me. It was Brooke, the girl who had once been my closest confidant, before bitterness had marred our friendship. Brooke? The name slipped from my lips, barely a whisper, strung tight with disbelief. 1,000 unspoken words hung in the air between us, ready to fall like stones. She looked thinner than I remembered, her usually vibrant hair dull beneath the flickering lights, eyes wide and shadowed. "I thought I was the only one left," she said, her voice a cracked reflection of the strength it once held. "Where's Sammy?" I demanded, a mix of urgency and relief rushing through me. This unexpected encounter had thrown me off balance, stirring up the tumult of our past. Brooke shook her head, her gaze darting across the room as if afraid to land on any single point. "I don't know. I've been trying to find a way out since this all began." The tremor in her voice betrayed the calm facade she clung to. "But we can't linger. Those things are out there." Isaac emerged from behind a row of fallen desks, his face drawn tight with anxiety. "You found her?" he asked, relief flooding his tone. "Yeah, but..." I hesitated, emotions roiling as I looked back at Brooke. The last time we spoke, words had severed the connection between us with an agonizing finality. "But, we need to keep looking for Sammy, together or alone?" Brooke challenged, a spark of her old fire igniting within the chaos. "We can't waste time here arguing. No, I cut in, the words bursting forth, fueled by raw desperation. "We can't leave her behind. I won't abandon her like that." The air grew thick and tense, holding the weight of unspoken truths. Brooke's expression softened momentarily, shadows of regret flickering across her features. "I should have reached out. I thought about you, you know." Isaac stepped between us, his voice cutting through the turmoil. "We don't have time for this. We need to make a choice: stick together or split up and cover more ground." The truth of his words settled on us, a bitter fruit of reality we couldn't ignore. I glanced at Brooke, the girl who had once shared laughter and dreams with me, before the pits of jealousy and miscommunication had swallowed it all whole. "Well, go together," I finally said, feeling the act of decision wrap around me like a lifeline, fueling my hope amidst the horror. Just then, a bone-chilling scream echoed from somewhere beyond the gym, slicing through the fragile hope we clung to. It was unmistakable, a cry that resonated with fear and hopelessness. "Sammy!" I gasped, my heart lurching anew, a fierce instinct taking hold. "That has to be her." Without waiting for a response, I bolted toward the double doors, propelled by the sheer force of my emotions. Brooke and Isaac followed, their footsteps a wild percussion echoing mine as we burst out into the corridor, where the panic was palpably alive. But as we reached the hallway, a horrid realization struck like a blow: chaos had blossomed in every corner. The flails of shadows had spilled into the corridors, blanketing us in an unsettling shroud. "Stay close!" I shouted, feeling the walls of dread close in around us. I reached for Isaac's hand, the warmth bolstering against the chill gnawing at my resolve. Brooke moved beside us, her eyes darting nervously as we surged forward. But the cacophony was unlike anything I'd experienced. Voices cried out, but they were drowned by the all-consuming darkness that crept closer, swallowing the fragile glimmers of hope we clung to. Crisis surged and ebbed an unpredictable tide until suddenly we were at a crossroads, and I felt the reality of the choice bearing down upon me once more. The gym loomed behind us like a forsaken ship, its lifeboats lashed tightly while screams echoed down each passageway. Left or right? Isaac shouted, anxiety cracking through his voice. I felt the panic rise again, mingled with a flicker of urgency. I can't decide. I can't let us go the wrong way. Just then, the whispers of the shadows curled around USA's sinister chorus growing louder, mingling with the shouted pleas that faded into despair. I took a shaky breath, looking left, then right, uncertainty weighing heavy on my chest. What's that? Brooke's voice echoed around me, tinged with dread, her eyes falling on something further down the dim corridor. A flash of movement, an apparition cloaked in darkness. Keep running, I yelled, drawing us forward, but in the split moment of rushing past, I glimpsed what had drawn her attention. It was a low, dark mass shivering into form, not a shadow but something more substantial, something visceral, a creature born of nightmares. It seemed to move with a malevolent intelligence, and just as I turned back to our path, it lunged toward us, piercing the suffocating veil of twilight with a terrifying speed. Isaac, watch out! I screamed, but in the moments that stretched out like eternity, everything fractured into chaos. Just as we turned to escape, an ear-splitting crash reverberated down the hall, causing the lights to stutter and flicker, bathing us in sporadic flashes of fear-soaked vigilance, and in that abyss of uncertainty, I realized we were no longer alone. An echo, not just a presence, but a memory, as the piercing screams and the lingering shadow melded together, striking a final blow of horror that would leave us forever altered. As the darkness closed in, I felt the icy grip of fate tighten around me, pulling us into the heart of the storm, and as the figure lunged, my heart sank. Everything I had fought to protect was unraveling, hanging by a frail thread tugged by unseen forces. The realization that not all who ventured into darkness returned echoed menacingly, leaving me breathless and teetering on the precipice of despair, thrusting us into an unknown fate I feared we might not escape. The darkness expanded around us as the creature's grotesque form filled my vision, a frenzy of limbs and shadow. My instincts screamed for me to run, but my feet felt glued to the floor, a mix of immobilizing terror and sheer disbelief coursing through my veins. Move! Isaac's command pierced through my immobility, and I finally turned, urging my legs to propel me forward into the fray of chaos. Brooke bolted ahead, her heartbeat echoing in sync with my frantic pulse. We flew down the corridor, the echoing sounds of the creature's pursuit rattling my very bones. Do you hear that? Brooke gasped between panicked breaths, glancing over her shoulder. I could feel a tremor in her voice that shattered the facade she had clung to moments before. No. I shouted back, forcing my focus ahead. We can't look back. The metallic scent of fear mingled with the musty air that enveloped us as we rounded yet another corner, the fluorescent lights above flickering ominously like stuttering hearts. The walls felt like they were closing in, the shadows unfurling like tendrils eager to ensnare us. Where's Sammy? I shouted, desperation clawing at my throat. We couldn't be losing her like this, not now, not after everything. But a slice of hope pierced through my dread. I clung to the fleeting memory of her laughter and unwavering support. Keep moving, Isaac urged again, and I was about to comply when I heard a series of shattering crashes erupt from the gym we had just fled, a blast of chaos that made me falter briefly. What was that? Brooke whispered, barely audible. Nothing good, I replied, fear lacing my voice. We had to push forward. But as we ran, the paths began to distort before us, familiar hallways morphing into a maddening labyrinth where every exit seemed to fold back upon itself. Panic danced at the edges of my mind. Wait, which way? I panted, glancing at Isaac as his instincts contorted into confusion. A small part of me longed to cling to Brooke, rekindling the strength of our forgotten friendship, but memories of harsh words and bitter resentments wrapped around my heart like an iron vice. Right! Isaac finally shouted, and I darted in that direction, the adrenaline surging brighter than fear, propelling me through the shadows. It was then that I noticed the flicker of movement, the light spilling through a doorway ahead, a narrow passage that offered sanctuary. Over there. I pointed, my voice breaking, urgency and hope intermingling. Before I realized it, I had already torn through the door, hastening my pace toward the sliver of illumination. Wait! Isaac called, his voice strained, as I now felt the natural warmth of sunlight catching my skin, a brief relief amidst the chaos. But as I stepped into the light, the breath fled from my lungs. The room was a classroom, the dated desks and chairs strewn about haphazardly, offerings to moments long lost. But it wasn't the unsettling wreck of nostalgia that gripped my heart. It was the sight of a familiar, small figure seated on the floor, her knees drawn to her chest, surrounded by torn paper. "Sammy!" I cried, rushing toward her only to halt suddenly, horror twisting my stomach. "Get away from her!" Brooke screamed behind me as she flew past, arms outstretched in a protective gesture that mirrored my urgent instinct. "No! It's Sammy!" I shouted, the fear turning to desperation. But Brooke's next word sent an icy tremor through my spine. "That's not," but the shadow of reason was drowned out by a sharper scream echoing from my heart. I reached down, my hand brushing Sammy's shoulder. "Sammy, it's me." I pleaded, but she turned slowly, a vacant expression etched across her features that shattered my soul. The warmth of her presence had turned cold, her wide eyes lacking recognition, lost somewhere deep inside a darkness I couldn't fathom. I felt the agonizing toll of emotion weigh heavily upon me, the echoes of our laughter now folding neatly into the shadows of despair. "Please, Sammy." I choked, but she flinched at my voice, as if afraid of the sound. In the pit of my stomach, a wave of dread crashed over me. If she wasn't the same, Brooke stepped cautiously toward her, trying to maintain some semblance of calm. "Sammy, can you hear us?" Hope was palpable, yet it was tinged with an incredulous tinge of fear. But in that fractured moment, it became abundantly clear, something was profoundly wrong, and with every flicker of light in the room, we were hurtling deeper into uncharted terror. Then, suddenly, the dense darkness accompanied us from the hallway, creeping in like poison, wrapping itself around my senses. "There's no time!" Isaac shouted again, glancing nervously toward the doorway we had just traveled through. "Sammy!" I cried out futilely as confusion wrapped my senses in frayed ribbons of hope, the quaking reality hitting me square in the chest. "Run! Now!" Brooke yelled, desperation igniting her voice as she started to pull Sammy to her feet, but the girl's body was limp. She was fighting against user, perhaps trapped in a battle with herself. An agonizing snap echoed behind us. I turned too late, the creature's grotesque visage spilling into the classroom, casting an ominous shadow over us all. It was coming closer, ravenous and eager to claim its prize. Go! I screamed, shoving Isaac ahead as panic surged through me, forcing me toward the threshold. But as I grabbed onto Sammy's wrist, whispering promises of safety, another realization struck like a thunderbolt. Amidst our frantic escape, the future I had envisioned, our reunions, our laughter, was splintering, and I was grappling with the truth that none of us might emerge unscathed. As the thunderous shrieks echoed behind us, everything hung in the balance. My heart was in freefall, teetering on a precipice of impossible choice, and in that moment, I understood the harshest reality: there were losses awaiting us, losses we might not have the strength to bear. And then the words slipped from my lips: a prayer, a wish, a silent hope that echoed through the darkness as the world spiraled wildly around me. "Please, don't let this be the end." The urgency to flee sharpened every moment, but I could feel the weight of Sammy's hand slipping from me, a thread fraying under the burden of a heavy darkness. The creature prowled closer, its twisted form seeping into the classroom like an ink stain on a pristine page, a grotesque picture of despair. My mind raced, every thought fractured as I fought against the gloom wrapping around us. "Sammy, please!" I begged, my voice breaking under the strain of desperation. But she faltered in Brooke's embrace, her eyes clouded with confusion, each glance darting between me and the creature looming just behind. "Get her out! She's not with us!" Isaac shouted, his voice barely cutting through the tension as he positioned himself between us and the approaching shadow. Brooke's grip tightened around Sammy's shoulders as if that alone could tether her to reality. "You have to hold on. Please, just hold on." But it was as if Sammy was lost in another world, her fractured gaze reflecting unspeakable horrors. Flickers of recognition danced just out of reach, like the fading echoes of a song all of us once knew. I felt the panic surge again, fury igniting a resolve deep within. "Sammy!" I cried again, this time grounding my fear into something potent, something unyielding. "Remember when we built that fort in my living room? You always wanted to make the biggest blanket fort in the world." For a fleeting moment, I caught a glimmer of a spark in Sammy's eyes. It flickered like a candle in the wind before dousing itself in a sea of uncertainty. "Run!" Isaac shouted. "We can't stay." His body trembled with unspent adrenaline, a shield against the encroaching darkness. But I couldn't leave her, not like this. "Sammy, don't you see? We're here. We're fighting for you." The creature roared, the sound harsh and grating against my eardrums, a reminder that time was a tether fraying rapidly. "We need to go," Brooke urged, her voice pained yet insistent, shaking Sammy gently. "Remember us, Sammy. Don't let her go," I begged, squeezing Sammy's wrist tighter. "Fight. You can fight this." The creature lunged forward, and a primal fear clawed at my chest as shadows surged, threatening to overwhelm everything I clung to. In that instant, a new sense of clarity pierced through the chaos. I would not abandon Sammy, not when she needed me most. I stepped forward, eyes locked onto hers. "Remember the time we all pooled our allowance to buy that stupid rubber chicken for the school play? You wanted to name it Mr. Fluffy because it made you laugh." "Mr. Fluffy," Sammy muttered softly, her voice barely rising above a tremor, another thread of recognition beginning to weave itself back together, even as fear gripped my heart, a fiery determination coursed through my veins. As long as Sammy was holding onto even a flicker of our shared moments, a bridge could still be built from sorrow to hope. Brooke pulled Sammy closer, desperation knitting her reality into something fragile yet strong. "That's it, Sammy. You can fight. Remember who you are. Remember us." The darkness loomed, shadows swirling violently, and in that moment, something shifted. Sammy's eyes widened, brushed with fear but also a determination that hadn't been there before. I don't want to be lost," she cried out, the clarity cutting like glass through the layers of despair that had cloaked her. "Yes. You're not lost. We are together, and we will fight this," I shouted, clenching my fist, the reality of our situation dawning on me. But before any further words could cement our fragile connection, the creature lunged again, a living nightmare that crackled the air. Isaac was there, a force of nature, pushing us to the side and grabbing the nearest desk, slamming it against the doorframe with a deafening thud, a desperate barricade against the encroaching horror. "Go. Now." With that rallying cry, Brooke hoisted Sammy up, her legs limp beneath her, the connection between them barely holding as the reality of this fractured moment swallowed us whole. "I need you with me, Sammy. Please, fight back." I felt the noose of fear twist around my throat but clung to the hope ignited by my friend's flickering loyalty. Every fiber of my being urged them forward. "Come on," I said, forcing myself into motion, moving alongside Brooke as we strained beneath Sammy's weight. Just as we began to shuffle toward the exit, time twisted again, distorting, the doorway morphing into a maw of despair. The creature's growl resonated through the classroom, a brooding promise of chaos poised to swallow us all whole. "Don't look back, no matter what," Isaac shouted again, a protective flame kindling between us. We were barely a pace away from freedom when I heard a shattering roar of darkness, so primal it felt as if the very air around us had shattered, the ground trembling beneath our feet. That was when I caught a glimpse of Ida flicker at the edge of my peripheral vision, the creature's grotesque form shifting, blending with shadows. Only, something stilled the blood in my veins, a hint of clarity beneath the fog of its nightmare form, a flash of familiarity, the faint outline of someone I hadn't expected to see. The world narrowed, and terror ignited my chest anew. "Wait!" I shouted, and instinctively, I turned toward the darkness just in time to see a figure veering out of the obscurity, stepping into the classroom, a soul I never thought I would witness again. Sam. You don't know what you're getting into. The shock and despair rang out in my veins, and I could only stand frozen, watching as the truth settled heavily upon my shoulders. The shadows had been lying, and the darkness had claimed more than just Sammy. Get back! Isaac yelled, pushing me towards the doorway, but the fierce glow of recognition curled my heart into knots. This was no longer just about survival. It was gut-wrenching realization. The figure stepping into the light was not the ally I had hoped for, but a haunting reminder of everything we had lost. As I stumbled backward, terror wrapping around me like a vice, the revelation of who had come forth struck me like a hammer. No, not him, and in the frantic blur of chaos, everything we believed turned to ash amid the darkness. In the face of ruptured loyalties and betrayed memories, I braced for the fallout, waiting with a horrified heart for the answer to the question I wasn't brave enough to voice: who else had been taken? With every heartbeat, the tension in the air thickened, suffocating and palpable. The figure, the one I had known and trusted, stood at the cusp of the darkness, the wretched creature just beyond. A cacophony of thoughts invaded my mind, each one spiraling into madness as betrayal washed over me like icy water. Sam, don't! I screamed, my voice a fraying string in a storm. Stay with us. We have to leave. The pull of my friend, the one still anchored by laughter and joy, was what I clung onto, but as I looked back, realization crashed over me like a tidal wave. The shifting form in the shadows was no longer merely a creature of darkness, it was entwined with stories I thought forever sealed away. Why are you here, Evan? My voice trembled, terrified of the answer that loomed just beneath his mask of familiarity. Each movement he made sent a shiver down my spine, dragging up memories I wished were buried, moments when life had felt so uncomplicated. Words like family and trust floated unchallenged in the air. But now, they became cruel illusions, dancing just beyond reach as the shadows began to swirl with malicious intent. You've come back, but it isn't you. My voice cracked, the fear clawing at my throat. This isn't you anymore. Listen to me, Sam. Evan called out, his tone desperate, a pleading resonance shrouded in pain. I can help you. I didn't want it to end this way. Every instinct screamed at me to turn away, to flee toward the remnants of our dwindling light. But the emotional gravity of his words ground me to that spot, where hope and horror intertwisted. How can we ever trust you again? Don't listen to him. Isaac's voice cut through the haze like a knife, shoving me closer toward the doorway. Yet the sight of Evan, standing between us and the looming creature, drew me back like a moth to a flame. My heart waged war against itself, the longing clashing violently with an instinctual dread. Please just let me explain. Evan's eyes flickered, reflecting a haunting mixture of sorrow and desperation that twisted inside me. I've been under the darkness for too long. It's taken everything from me, too. Better you than us. I shot back, but as the words left my lips, they felt empty, devoid of the conviction I once had. The room felt like it had shrunk around us, and the dissonance in the air saddled my heart. Evan had been taken by the creature or by his own choices, and now he stood there, fighting through that layer of darkness, desperation etched on his face. Sammy, he said softly, reaching out as if to bridge the chasm of shadows that separated us. Still me, underneath it all. I need you to believe that. The creature howled in protest, and I could feel the darkness closing in. But beneath the roar, there was an eerily familiar timbre that coiled around me. Its hungry whispers mingled with fragments of our shared laughter, our shared dreams. Threads of memory that complicated my path of escape. Don't do this. Brooke's desperate voice sliced through my turmoil, her body trembling as she fought to pull Sammy closer to the door. We can't risk it. He's not the same. But even as dread coursed through me like poison, there lingered a flicker of hope. Evan, I whispered, a thread of uncertainty slipping past my lips, how do we know you're not lying? How do we know you can be trusted? Because I remember, he said, that mixture of vulnerability and fierce determination breaking through the fear. I remember our adventures, the nights we spent dreaming about the future, the connection we had. I can still feel it. I can still feel you. For a fleeting moment, the shadows waned, and the flicker of recognition ignited something deep in my core. Could it be possible? Could the child I once knew still exist despite the horror consuming him? But deep down, another voice taunted me with doubts, echoing warnings of betrayal and pain. No. I cried out, shaking my head, terror and betrayal writhing inside me like a storm. You're lost. You're just as dark as the creature. The darkness around us surged forward, and Isaac clenched his fists, ready to push us toward safety. We're running out of time. We can't stay, yet even as we edged toward the exit, every step felt like trudging down a path of fire. I stole another glance at Evan, fighting to pull himself from the clutches of the creature's shadows. I can help you. He called out, anguish lacing every syllable. We can fight this together, I swear. Fight what? My voice broke as I stared into the abyss of desperation on his face. There it was again, that internal conflict brewing, love pitted against caution. You're not the same. Just then, the creature lunged forward, its approach eclipsing everything. The wall of shadows writhed hungrily, and fear flooded my veins as I felt the grip on Sammy's hand slipping. Sam! Brooke shouted. No. I screamed, instinctively reaching for her, the realization that there was no clear escape converging on us, a tightrope of looming darkness beneath our feet. As we staggered into the doorway, a horrific roar erupted from the creature, and just as I pushed Sammy and Brooke out into the hallway, I caught a glimpsy flicker of light crossing Evan's face as realization dawned upon him. No. I won't let you go. He shouted. In that instant, the darkness released a furious howl, the echo vibrating through the very marrow of our beings. My gut twisted, my heart a cacophony as I took one last glance back, uncertainty parked on my shoulders, behind the veil of shadows that threatened to engulf him. Evan's face was resolute, even as the darkness clawed at him. And then, as quickly as it had arrived, the figure of Evan disappeared in the chaos, leaving only the haunting remnants of shared laughter and dreams that now lay shattered. The door slammed shut just as the creature lunged, and the sense of loss struck like a physical blow. Then came the silence, heavy and tangibly, no longer merely a vacuum of sound, but also a vacuum of our dreams. Did he? Brooke whispered, her voice barely above a breath as reality settled over us like an unforgiving shroud. I didn't have the heart to answer, my throat constricted as the weight of our choices began to reverberate within me. But what haunted me most wasn't just the loss, it was the nagging knowledge that in our journey, we might have traded hope for despair, and intertwined with every breath of darkness might just lie the key to our salvation. As we stumbled away down the corridor, I could feel the walls closing in as the shadows gathered, the weight of betrayal heavy on our shoulders. In the pit of my stomach was a gnawing fear. What if he could be saved? What if we had turned our backs on a flickering light only to plunge deeper into malignant darkness? And just beyond the door, out of reach but ever present, an unsettling thought gestated, waiting to surface. Could this shadow be the one we must confront within ourselves? The hallway stretched before us, dimly lit, the flickering fluorescent lights casting shadows that danced like specters in the darkness. My heart thudded in my chest, each beat echoing like a drum signaling the morning of lost friendships and trust. We moved, but I felt each step heavier than the last, the weight of uncertainty and guilt pressing down upon us. Sam, we need to keep moving. Brooke urged, her voice strained as we navigated the dimly lit labyrinth. But my feet felt leaden, caught in an internal battle between fleeing and turning back. Thoughts of Evan haunted Maya's face, twisted with grief and desperation, replayed in my mind like a song stuck on repeat. That I can't. What if he really is still in there? What if we turned our backs on him? My words hung in the air like a heavy fog. Brooke shot me an incredulous look, eyes blazing with a mix of fear and anger. He was willing to let the darkness swallow him whole. We saw it. You can't let that childish hope blind you to the truth. The sharpness of her words cut deep, forcing me to confront the turmoil brewing within. I wanted to believe he wasn't lost, that somewhere behind the torment there was still the Evan I had cherished, me brother, my friend. But I also knew the darkness, and I felt its chill crawling up my spine, threatening to poison every semblance of hope I clung to. Isaac walked a few paces ahead, casting cautious glances over his shoulder. We don't have time to debate. Whatever that was, it's going to come after us. We need to find a way out and regroup. His voice steeled my resolve, reminding me of the urgency of our situation. Still, my heart ached with the possibility that we may have lost someone worth saving. As we turned a corner, a low growl rumbled in the distance, a chilling reminder of the shadow that had pursued us. Panic surged, and with terror sharpening my focus, I raced forward, determined to escape an abyss that seemed all too eager to swallow us whole. Each door we passed became a doorway of opportunity, a chance to change a fate that felt increasingly dire. The distant roars were growing louder, urging us to make a choice. Suddenly, we came upon a small alcove, a door slightly ajar, adorned with rusted metal that hung as if it could plummet at any moment. "Let's check in there," Isaac proposed, his instincts sharp as he pushed the door slowly, its creaks echoing like the cracking of brittle bones. Inside, the dim light illuminated forgotten relics, old maps, dusty books, and the small trinkets that felt like mementos stuck in time. But it wasn't just a cache of echoes from the past. In the center of the room lay a table lined with old photographs, faces frozen in time, our faces captured in laughter, the essence of days unmarred by encroaching shadows. A wave of nostalgia crashed over me, mingling with the longing for simpler days. I walked over, entranced by the moment. Then, tucked beneath a warped photograph of our childhood adventures, a small, blood-stained piece of paper caught my eye. My breath hitched as I pulled it from its hiding place. As I unfolded it, dread twisted my insides. Scrawled in uneven handwriting were words of a plea, drenched in pain: "If you find this, it's taken everything from meth. Darkness consumes us all. But if you listen, the key to defeating it lies in facing the shadows within. They are only as powerful as we allow them to be." A chill skittered down my spine, deepening my dread. This was here for a reason, isn't it? I turned to Isaac and Brooke, their expressions merging with confusion as they feasted on the content like flies drawn to a flame. "Are you suggesting we embrace the darkness?" Brooke scoffed, her voice trembling slightly. No, not embrace," I choked out, the knot of anxiety tightening in my throat. "He's saying we have to confront it. You don't just fight it, you understand what it is. Evan, maybe he's trapped in this internal battle. We could be the ones to help him. Or it could consume us," Isaac reminded, his brows furrowed. But even though I knew he hesitated, there was an echo of understanding in his eyes. Resentment spiraled within me. Evan had been my beacon of hope, replaced now by shadows, but if there was any chance he could still be saved, I couldn't abandon him. "We have to try," I pleaded. But the growling in the distance stirred and drew nearer, pulling our attention back to the reality of our looming danger. "I'm not leaving anyone behind," I stated fiercely, clutching the note tightly in my grasp, resolute. My heart surged with determination. "But we need to hurry and find another way back. The sooner we confront this darkness within and around us, the better." Just as we steeled ourselves to leave, the ground beneath us trembled. A crack echoed through the room, and with it came an ominous roar, sending vibrations through the walls like an impending storm. Adrenaline thundered as if propelling us to action, but all I could think of was Evan and the haunting realization that the boundary between hope and despair was a fragile seam, ever close to splitting apart. In the chaos, a sudden flash of light illuminated the alcove just as the door burst open, revealing a figure cloaked in shadows, yet I could have sworn it bore the unmistakable form of someone familiar. My heartbeat quickened, uncertainty flooding my thoughts. "Evan?" I breathed, my voice barely audible over the commotion, but before a response could descend, chaos erupted, dark tendrils reaching into the alcove, consuming the remnants of hope I clung to. The darkness surged forward, swallowing the memories and the light, and with it, I felt the last sliver of certainty shatter, leaving behind only the echo of a name hanging in the air like a whisper lost in the wind: Sam. The realization struck me like a blow. Could Evan be this embodiment of darkness, a fractured reflection of the boy I once knew? And if so, in saving him, would I also have to confront the shadows hidden within my own heart? The truth, now more perilous than ever, lingered in the air as if daring me to step further into the abyss where hope and despair melded as one. The whirlpool of darkness closed around us, each tendril brushing against my skin like icy fingers. The echoes of my brother's name hung heavily in the air, promising deliverance and devastation all at once. I wanted to reach out, to grasp something tangible, but the shadows had become a cacophony of quiet screams and haunting memories that threatened to inundate me. "Sam, we need to go. Now." Brooke's voice shot through the haze, but it was strained, barely tethered to reason as panic ignited her urgency that I felt Isaac's grip tighten on my wrist, his presence a small buoy amidst the swirling vortex. "Stay focused. We can't lose ourselves here." His eyes glimmered with fierce determination, and I clung to that determination like a lifeline. The growling intensified, an ominous growl reverberating around us, pouring through the cracks in our resolve. "But if that's him," I pleaded, my heart lurching with each heartbeat that mirrored the chaos surrounding us. "Get a grip, Sam," Isaac snapped, forcing me to look away from the encroaching darkness that seemed so intertwined with the very essence of who we had been. I swallowed hard, my own fear spilling over as I struggled to comprehend the reality of the situation. What if Evan was trapped in the darkness, or worse, what if he had become it? From that murky depth emerged flashes of our childhood, the games we played, the laughter that echoed between us, the dreams we spun brightly in the fabric of our shared lives. "We can't lose those memories," I murmured, a fragile hope budding amidst the dread. "If I can remind him of who he used to be." Brooke's eyes softened momentarily, but then she shook her head. "You can't reason with darkness, Sam." She pulled me towards the door, the howl of the shadows quickening, nipping at our heels. "Come on. We have to find a way out." But as I moved, I became aware of the disarray in my mind, the turmoil wrestling in my heart. I was not just racing away from the darkness, I was running from the possibility that the battle between light and shadow lived inside me too. That fear felt heavy, a burden that threatened to clobber my newfound resolve. "Wait!" I suddenly called out, halting them in their flight. What if we divide? I can try to reach him while you two find the exit. If there's even a chance he's in there, that's crazy, Sam. You can't just confront that monster alone." Isaac exclaimed, his voice trembling between anger and worry. "It's not crazy if there's a chance it could work," I countered, desperation creeping into my voice. "I have to try. I would never forgive myself if I didn't at least try to help him." "Listen to your instincts," came a new voice, smooth yet weathered. I turned sharply, my breath hitching. A figure emerged from the shadows, not menacing as I had feared but solid and steady, clad in worn leather and muffled memories etched into his skin. "You have to face him, or you'll never break through." "Who are you?" Brooke asked, her fear draped in a cloak of defiance, ready to confront this unexpected apparition. "That I am of the darkness, but I've learned to walk between its shadows." His eyes sparkled with compassionate understanding. "The screams you hear aren't just of despair, they are echoes of dreams lost, fragments of Evan fighting for a shred of light. Can you help me?" I took a step closer, my heart trembling with hope and trepidation. "That I am confronting him, you confront your own shadows too. You both may discover what truly binds you, the anguish of despair and the clarity of love. But be warned," he whispered, stepping back into the encroaching darkness, "your own fears will surface. They will challenge your belief in the light." "What does that even mean?" Brooke pressed, her voice laced with skepticism. "It means you must tread carefully, for the path is treacherous and you might not like what you unearth." He melted back into the shadows, leaving a heavy stillness in his wake. "What do we do?" Isaac looked from me to Brooke, caught between peril and the intangible hope that flickered like a dying flame. I took a deep breath, resolute. "I go for him. If I can reach him even for a moment, I'll do it." "Sam," Isaac ventured, eyes narrowing with concern. "Trust me," I said fiercely, my heart brimming with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. "It's my brother. He's worth the risk." They exchanged glances filled with doubt, but eventually, Isaac nodded, albeit reluctantly. "Okay, but stay in contact. We will be looking for a way back." Brooke stepped forward, uncertainty clouding her features but also a glimmer of faith. "If you're going, you need this." She reached into her pocket, pulling out a small silver locket, the remnants of a once bright piece now dulled with age. It used to belong to Evan. Maybe it could guide him back. With shaking hands, I took the locket and pressed it to my chest, a talisman of love woven into dark threads of fate. "Thank you both of you." As they turned and fled toward the exit, my heartbeat became a drum, echoing in tandem with the shadows slithering around me. I was alone now, enveloped by an intoxicating mix of fear and wild courage. I stepped forward, chasing the glimmers of memory mixed with regret as the growl morphed into something louder, like a taunting laugh beckoning me deeper. "Evan," I called hoarsely, plunging into the depths of the darkened heart of this labyrinthine maze. With every step, an overwhelming surge of loneliness coursed through my veins, but beneath it thrummed the unwavering thread of hope that he could still hear me, lost and searching, somewhere within the abyss. The shadows writhed as if stirred by my shout, dancing closer, and I could sense the heat of my own fears creeping alongside. "I'm coming for you," I cried out, just as the wall of darkness billowed forward, closing in before me, and then, amidst the chaos, the ground split open, revealing a chasm whispering secrets, echoing grief. I last glimpsed a figure standing at the precipice, mirroring the boy I once knew, eyes swirling with agony and shadows. My breath halted. Before I could muster a word, it turned, a recognition dawning that sent ripples of ice through my heart. Sam. The voice was both my brother's and yet dissonant, tinged with something darker. The chasm widened, the shadows congealing, ready to consume everything. I cried out as hope teetered on an uncertain precipice where the depths of despair met the possibility of salvation. The line between bravery and recklessness blurred, and I realized I was standing at the brink of my limits, ready to either save him or fall into the abyss myself. As I stood at the edge of that chasm, everything spiraled within me. The familiar warmth of my childhood memories spiraled toward the darkness like leaves caught in a tempest. "Evan, I'm here," I shouted, steeling myself against the encroaching void. My heart raced, echoing the urgency that pulsed through the air, a frantic prayer that clawed its way out of my throat. The figure before me shifted uneasily. I could see its flicker and play of recognition and the profound depths of sorrow etched in his features. "You shouldn't have come," he murmured, the shadows dancing around him like poisonous vines. But there was something in those words, a glimmer of the brother I once knew leading me onward. "Evan, I can help you." I reached out, willing him to take just a step forward. "We can fight this together." The tendrils of darkness reached toward me, whispering frantic warnings, but I pushed through, defiance burning bright in the depths of my heart. "Together?" His voice trembled, tinged with both skepticism and longing. "Do you even know what that means anymore? You saw what I've become." The shadows coiled tighter, a physical manifestation of his fears, reflecting the monsters lurking within. "I'm lost." "No, you're not." My voice broke, raw with emotion, desperation slicing through the oppressive atmosphere. "You're here, and I can see you. You're still my brother, hiding underneath that darkness." Instinctively, I clutched the locket Brooke had given me, the weight of it a reminder of who we were and who we could be again. "You have so much light left in you. Remember the fort we built? The laughter we shared?" As I spoke, the memories wrapped around me like a lifeline, each one lighting a path towards the heart of his darkness. The shadows recoiled as if in pain, and for a moment, clarity flickered in Evan's eyes, battling the heavy fog of despair. "I remember," he whispered, voice cracking under the pressure of acknowledgement. "But it's too late, Sam. I can't escape this. But you can." I pressed, each word pulling us closer to a connection that felt both terrifying and beautiful. "You have to fight. Feel the strength we forged together. Remember that promise we made to always stick together? No matter what." With that, a flicker of recognition ignited in his gaze, a tiny spark fighting against the suffocating darkness. I took a step closer, my heart bursting with the hope that flickered like a candle amid a storm. "Fight for us, Evan. Fight to come back. I need you." The shadows recoiled for the briefest moment, tension thrumming in the air, and with it came a surge of energy as if the darkness itself was recoiling from my unwavering love. Ino, I don't want to hurt you. I can't. The aching confession clawed its way out, mingling with despair. Then let me help you remember. I shouted, feeling the weight of our shared memories ripple as if calling him back from the abyss. Evan, it's not just about you anymore, this is about us. Don't let the darkness take you. Remember when we played hide and seek, and you let me win every time, even when I cheated? His breathing quickened, tension rippling through his form, fighting against the weight of shadows seeking to tether him. His eyes locked onto mine, and I saw no, I felt it struggle deep within. I want to remember. He finally called, anguish pouring through him like a river breaking free of its dam. But I'm so scared, feel it. I implored, anchoring my voice in the strength of our bond, forcing everything to coalesce into this single moment. Let the memory wash over you. We are not gone, we are here. Fight, Evan. Together, with that, a scream tore through the air, a raw, primal howl that shook the very fabric around us. The shadows roared in protest, swirling violently as if trying to reclaim their lost vessel. Fear rippled through me, but I refused to back down. This was the moment when light battled against dark, and it rested solely on our willingness to confront what had been lost. Then, a shifting silhouette burst forth from the darkness, and for a fleeting second, I glimpsed my Brothera boy radiating hope and happiness, standing tall against the specter of despair. I seized the moment, rushing toward him. Remember our dreams and the plans we had? Remember who you are, that boy who had the brightest spark, and suddenly, clarity flooded his expression. A blinding light broke through the shadows that had tethered him. Sam. He stepped closer again, a tangible tether binding us to one another like a lifeline. I'm scared, but I want to live. I want to come back to you. Then take my hand. I urged, adrenaline surging as I reached out, enveloping him in warmth and trust. We'll face this together. The darkness has no hold over us if we stand united. He hesitated briefly, the shadows swirling dangerously around us, but then salvation washed over his features, a resolve ignited like wildfire. He stepped through the veil of shadows, breaking free with a strength I hadn't anticipated. Sam. He cried out, voice ringing with fervor, reaching for me, and as our hands clasped, the surge of warmth rushed through our connection, unraveling the tightly wound shadows like a delicate thread unspooling. Together, we pulled against the darkness, the chasm quaking as we forged our way out towards the light. The shadows howled, but their cries faded into echoes, unable to withstand the power of what we maintained, the fierce, unyielding hope and the love tethered to shared memories that proved stronger than pain. And then it happened. It was as if the world tilted, the shadows unraveling like a tangled thread, revealing a path forward bathed in shimmering light. The familiar echoes of laughter came soaring back, a melody of shared promises spinning through the air. As we broke free from the darkness's grip, I looked over as Evan emerged, his face illuminated not just by light but by newfound resolve, the echoes of the boy I had lost returning, brighter than ever. With eyes alight with understanding, he murmured, I'm sorry. I thought I was beyond saving. That I shook my head, tears threatening to spill over as love and forgiveness swelled within my heart. You were never lost to me, Evan. You only needed to remember. We stood in silence, the shadows receding into whispers along the edges of our now shared path. The cacophony muted into lingering echoes, a faint reminder of the battle witnessed, both metaphorical and real. Our hearts still beat as one, proof that even in the darkest moments, we could reclaim the light amidst the shadows. As we turned to leave, hope nestled firmly in our grasp. I let out a shaky breath, my heart bursting anew with a sense of catharsis. And in that final moment, as I gazed into my brother's eyes, I felt the emotional weight shift, releasing a tidal wave of closure as we stepped into the bright embrace of freedom. Hand in hand, we stepped into the dawn of a new beginning, one birthed from pain, but fortified by the unbreakable bond of family, memories, and the promise that not every shadow needs to claim us. In that profound silence, I realized the truth: we are not defined by our darkness, but by our fight to rise above it. The darkness within us may loom, but as long as we refuse to allow it to swallow the light, each step forward becomes a testament to resilience. And with the last breath that escaped my lips, I whispered aloud, together, we can face anything.